All right, we are live. Well, good morning, everyone. We are live today for our overview of Migrate Your Data into Azure like a boss with StorageX at no cost. With me is my panelists and subject matter experts. Let me take a moment to introduce them for you. Let me introduce Karl Rautenstrauch. Karl has 8+ years at Microsoft. And as the principal program manager for storage partners at Microsoft, Karl is responsible for Microsoft's channel and ISV strategy for Azure storage workloads. Prior to Microsoft, Karl was a solutions architect at NetApp and was responsible for evangelizing NetApp's next generation shared infrastructure internally and to customers. He's got a wide array of experience in the industry with 20+ years experience that he brings to this conversation. Welcome, Karl.
Thank you, Chris. Happy to be here.
Good. Also with me today is Dave McMath. Dave is with Data Dynamics. He's got 13+ years in experience. Dave is the head of our product management at Data Dynamics. Before joining Data Dynamics, Dave was a professional services consultant at NetApp, managing and delivering company marketed solutions, sets, and other customer consulting services, working with the sales teams and also presenting to customers very unique built solutions and addressing their requirements. Welcome, Dave.
Morning, Chris. Thanks for the invite.
You bet. You bet. So guys, we've got a very jam-packed agenda today to talk to our audience about. And this is going to be a great opportunity for us to kind of go through a lot of the pains and experiences customers have. Just some housekeeping items. I know there's going to be questions along the way. If you don't mind, please do, from the audience perspective, type those questions into the chat. We will have the team fielding those and we'll get those addressed at the end of this conversation. So that'll give you an opportunity to stick with us and we'll get those questions addressed. So as we dive in today, let's get started. So we're finding Gartner has given us some interesting statistics. Global end user spend on the public cloud services is planned to exceed over $480 billion in 2022. So these are some staggering statistics that we've seen and we're beginning to address as a company and in our partnership with Microsoft. Some of the things that we're doing today and finding is that IDC has also represented some numbers that nearly 40% of the companies are not prepared or confident that they have the competencies and the skill sets to make this transition into the cloud. So it's become a big problem. And with that comes big pains. And I think we've got the painkiller pill for you today. So as we get into this conversation, it's going to be a lot of fun as we talk about some of the challenges that organizations are beginning to face. Karl, I'm going to start with you and just share your experiences on what are the top challenges that customers do face while migrating their data to the cloud?
Yeah, Chris, I'll tell you, over the course of almost 9 years now here, really working directly with customers and our partners on migrating applications and data sets to Azure, we see a pretty consistent theme. I think everyone out there in every industry is a little overburdened today. Too much to do, too little time, and too few people. So really, the folks that I work with and I talk to are seeking automation. They want to make sure that they can engage in complex activities like moving an application that it's comprised of virtual machines, databases, and a file repository in the simplest way possible with the least risk possible. And that's really a consistent theme in all customers of all sizes that I work with.
Yeah, boy, that's a common theme. I'm sure that we're hearing something very similar. Dave, share some of your perspective and experience.
Yeah, just to add what Karl's saying, with customers want automation. They want the big green easy button to say migrate from A to B. They need specialists and experts like us to drive the best practices, drive the best settings so that they don't have to go into all the bells and whistles. They want the easy button. They also want to be able to drive the migration product that they choose through potentially their own integrations with things like ServiceNow. So everything in our product set is being able to be driven by a REST API. So we have those things. Scalability as well. When you're talking about the size of data that we'll mention on an example case later on, you have to be able to run thousands of policies, thousands of jobs in parallel. Otherwise, you just cannot meet the timelines. You'll be doing these things forever. The next part where I see some of the biggest challenges at my customers that I talk to day to day is around data discovery. Finding the data to copy is probably the easy part. Finding out who owns the data, who can give permission to migrate the data, who can allow you to schedule an outage or whatever's needed to get that data cut over to the cloud. They're absolutely areas which are strong points for us in helping you find that person who can give the okay.
Yeah. Boy, there's a lot of experience there, guys, and thank you for sharing that. I'm sure everyone that joins this webinar is experiencing one or many of those case in points, and we see them pretty continuous. So in summary, I'm hearing that data classification of the unstructured and structured data, hot and cold data, is a problem. What data to move to the cloud? Right? The downtime that Dave mentioned impacting the customer's experience, right? There is no such thing as downtime in today's society. It's just the way we've become. The recognition of PII, and let me also add PHI, so personal identified information and personal health information. That data can lead to breaches, and we're reading about those in the news every single week, right? There's a new breach, there's a new problem that's been identified, and customers are trying to avoid these, and more importantly, they're trying to avoid the penalties associated with these, and that's a global issue, right? I was on the call yesterday, as a matter of fact, with a team in Brisbane, and they brought up the exact same PII request. Later that evening, I was on with a New Zealand team, and the same exact information on a healthcare customer with PHI. So it's beginning to resonate. You guys are really hitting the nail on the head. Data security and compliance, there is no exceptions. It's paramount. It's the top conversation that most chief data officers and chief technology and chief information officers speak to when we begin a conversation with them is, I cannot afford a data breach, and we must also be proactive as compared to reactive with our compliances. So guys, thank you so much. This is great information that you shared, and I'm beginning to see the kind of the common theme come through this. So Dave, let me bring it back to you. I know what are some of the consequences of these challenges? I know we've kind of spanned some of these topics, but I'd love to get your perspective on the consequences that you can share with our audience.
So as Karl said earlier, everybody wants to do more with less, but when you're facing the mountain in front of you of moving huge amounts of data in a timeline that, and Karl mentioned earlier, that has cost, impacts, you need manpower to drive these things. So when you look at this partnership between us two, having the automation, having the REST APIs means that you don't have to onboard the excess manpower. You don't have to buy 100 laptops with today's current lead times on trying to get hold of a laptop or a MacBook. You don't have to onboard people with regards to getting them access to the right things. You don't have to upskill them in the product sets. But having automation, having the ability to scale to hundreds and hundreds of policies in once means that people get to do more. And by having automation and policy-based migrations and streamlining those processes means that you don't have to have people typing in things. They don't type URLs anymore or NAS device paths, etc., which means you just remove huge amounts of errors. It streamlines the entire process so that you get quality, repeatable migrations.
Yeah, boy, good stuff. Karl, what are you seeing?
Yeah, well, really the last 2 points on here tie together to create one giant problem for folks who are moving to cloud. That really, when you look at a cloud data migration, it is always a heterogeneous migration. So if anybody who has done this within their own data center from one generation of hardware to another, when you use native array to array replication technologies, it's easier. But if you've ever switched vendors, if you've moved from one platform to another, that migration becomes much more complex, and that's going to delay your project without the right tools to help. And that delay of project in being able to move a workload, an application to public cloud, does have real cost implications. Folks move meaningful workloads to public clouds so they can take advantage of scale up, scale down on demand, and paying for what you use when you're going to use it. So if you've put those forecasts into your budget and it's taking you time to move the data, and you can't have a compute and application workload without the underlying data, that is costing you real money. And we've got a fantastic example of that coming up later.
Yeah, boy, that's exactly it. I'm hearing the delays, big impact. I'm hearing the cost, huge impact. And then also that availability that the cloud gives you, which is unheard of. If you own it on the infrastructure side, you own it. But in the cloud, you can actually turn it down. Now, that's unheard of in the worlds that I grew up in, right? And you guys have given us some great experiences about that. But everybody's making that pivot and transition into the cloud. And as they're starting to move the data, here's an interesting statistic that I want to share with you, because this was something that was very profound when I saw this. According to McKinsey, right, enterprises that are migrating their data is forecasted to cost $100 billion over the next 3 years. Now, I just want 10% of that, just so you guys know. But boy, that's a massive investment.
Only 10.
Right? Yeah, and interestingly enough, though, right? Think about this, right? The customers are if you equated that to an amount of capacity, how much data is going to be going across the wire or being moved at some point in time? It's staggering, right? The amount of data that's being created, and now the amount of data that's being moved and shifted into the cloud, and more specifically into Azure. There's such a strong portfolio that the customers just can't ignore this. So it's really, really interesting. So guys, thanks for your perspective and sharing with us, and the teams here that are joined us. Karl, I've got to bring this to you. So how does Microsoft Azure address these challenges that we've just started discussing and diving into here?
Well, I'll tell you, I think over the last couple of years, we've done a fantastic job when it comes to servers and databases, addressing those aspects of a customer's application environment. We have built a platform of services called Azure Migrate. Azure Migrate are freely available capabilities, cloud-driven services that help customers easily move virtual machines, databases, and now even containerize applications in an automated, risk-free fashion. But one area that's been neglected is unstructured data. So what we are doing to address that is the Azure File Migration Program. And we have recognized the need that our customers have to move unstructured data in the exact same manner that they're able to move virtual machines and databases, reduce the number of steps, reduce the people required, and reduce the time it takes to get value from that migration to Azure. And we've got a key component here that we're going to be talking about for the next couple of slides.
Good. So how do we play into this with you? Karl, I'd love to get your perspective here with us.
Well, Data Dynamics is absolutely a key and premier partner in this program with us. We couldn't be happier to have Data Dynamics participating, working directly with our customers, with our field teams, with our cloud solution architects to help customers solve a real problem. And again, accelerate their migration to Azure and accelerate their time to value from our public cloud services.
Karl, I just want to echo that sentiment and also just point out, we kicked this program off just recently, and we are so happy to be a part of it. When you showed me the framework many, many moons ago, right, we began looking at this, and my first reaction is, this is going to change the game. I believe Azure is on a growth trajectory, but I think this is going to accelerate the growth trajectory. The conversations that I've been able to have in just a short window of time with customers is, wow, I can't believe this. This is really compelling. And also with your Microsoft sellers team, people are just, I mean, they look at it and say, this is fantastic, right? I mean, the feedback has been really encouraging. Do you mind sharing with the audience here just some of the details about the program? Now, noting, like I said, this goes back many, many moons, but boy, I was really excited to learn when you started putting this together and we began entering into those engagements and discussions. Share with everyone, what we got to.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to. So I want to start with the relationship between Data Dynamics and Microsoft has been a long-standing one that goes well beyond this program in our history as companies. And what we were able to recognize together is, our mutual customers, our mutual solution integrators recognize the value of the partnership, the value of Data Dynamics StorageX and Insight Analytics. But they were kind of trained and used to migration services being free, being something that's just included in your migration to cloud initiative. So we worked together. We figured out a way to bring StorageX to our mutual customers at no cost, no license fees, so that we could unblock that obstacle of having to go out and justify a net new PO to move a portion of an application. And really the reason we were thrilled to partner with Data Dynamics is everything that we talked about previously, the automation, the choice, the capability to migrate data to the right place, the right cost, price performance tier, the flexibility that Data Dynamics StorageX brings to the table, along with the preservation of those all-important security attributes that make sure that your data is moved and not exposed to groups that should not have access to it because the platform changed. You moved from storage array A to Azure Service B. That should never endanger the security of your data. And really, when we looked at what was important to us, what was critically important to our customers and partners, that cemented that this was the right direction to go in. And the right thing to do was build this program and make sure our customers could use StorageX at no cost in their migration efforts.
I can't say this, but it certainly just echoes the sentiment, no cost. Karl, everyone has responded with an amazing surprise. That's been fun. Explaining that it's not tied to some other additional programs that Microsoft does have that have gates, barriers, business cases, and things, right? You've made it really, truly simple and an effective manner to get engaged. And boy, I can't thank you enough, because when I explain the program and share the program and the details that you've given, that's typically the first question is, what's the hidden cost to the customer?
It's so funny. Likewise. I mean, we were talking about this earlier in the week that I think I've spent more time on instant messages, LinkedIn pings, phone calls, emails explaining, yes, it really is free. No, there's no catch. This is what we're doing. We've got a fantastic option to help customers to solve real problems, and there is no catch. It's amazing. You're right. It's amusing. I have to laugh.
Well, job well done, and thank you for taking the patience to explain the program. And folks, I just want to let you know that when Karl says it's zero cost, it's zero cost. And this has been a fun ride so far, and everyone that's getting earshot of this information has turned around and said, wow, this is truly compelling. I said it earlier and I say it again. It is truly compelling. So let me share with you a little bit about a success story that really we've enjoyed together as two organizations. We engaged a large multinational oil and gas company headquartered in the UK and has multinational headquartering locations here in the US. And at one point in time, as we began the migrations into Azure specifically, we were going to a specific target. We started down a path, and that path was abruptly changed. And let me tell you the details to it, because I was a part of it as well. I received a call, and I'm sure you've all been through this experience, from a senior vice president at this multinational and said, hey, we have a problem. And I mean, the hair on the back of your neck stands up. We had migrated the data into one of the platforms. However, the data was illegible. It was unreadable, or we couldn't mount it properly. And we had come to find out that there was some missing permissions, right? And this was a large amount of data. We got the data migrated in, and it took a long time, as a matter of fact, getting the data in. After that initial conversation, I was asked two questions. Number one, can you solve the problem? And can you do it by this timeline? And when you're presented two questions, you have to immediately say, I can do this. We pulled a team together at Data Dynamics and our Microsoft teams, and we engaged the customer, and we workshopped through the discussions that needed to take place. And we put together a plan, presented it back to this customer, and said, we can do this. And Dave McMath was a part of some of those conversations. Karl, I'm sure you were trickled in and pulled in, whether you wanted to be or not. But guys, we were able to accomplish some significant milestones. And you guys, I want you to give some specific color and commentaries that you experienced. But we were able to move over 600 terabytes of data for this multinational organization into one of the Azure storage platforms in around 20 days. Now, remember the two questions. Number one, can you do it? And number two, what's the duration? There were financial penalties to staying in a data center that was under a data center evacuation into Azure. And we accomplished this in a milestone or record amount of time. Incredible story. And Dave, I know you were a part of this conversation. Jump in on a couple of bullets. I'd love to have you share it with the team.
It was thousands and thousands of shares. So they needed to copy huge amounts of data from many different devices, and they used our scalability features. They had 320 concurrent copies, all policy driven, all with automated scheduling, driven via our APIs. And they were copying 35 plus terabytes per day for, I think it might have even run to well, you see, it was got 20 days with 600 terabytes, but I think 35 days might have been over a petabyte of data in total.
That's incredible. Yeah, it was a very challenging estate of data on-prem that was moved into Azure. Karl, I know you got the experience with that. Back in the day when this began. What are the insights?
Yeah, really, I mean, just to add to the story, you heard me mention real impact. Well, this was twofold for our mutual customer. One was this was part of a data center exit that they were undertaking, and there were real financial consequences for not evacuating that data center in time. So that's meaningful. That's a big bill. That's a bill with penalties if you don't meet the timelines. But more importantly, this was a high performance compute batch workload. So what they were really hoping to reap was the benefits of faster time to value from their data. So not having it in the cloud, not being able to run those HPC jobs across tens of thousands of cores in Azure on demand had additional financial impacts for the business. So we talked about real implications, real world costs, real world penalties. This is a great example of that, and why automation, why parallel activities and orchestrated activities are just so important.
Yeah, I can tell you as an outcome from what started with an abruptness turned into one of our biggest successes, and that senior vice president is still one of our big fans, and I'm her biggest fan as well. And I can tell you that we performed. And we held ourselves to an accountability standard as we did that collectively between our Microsoft teams and the Data Dynamics team. We came together in one unison fashion to solve a really big problem. So guys, that is an incredible story. As an outtake of that, let me just share a couple things. Number one, we've enjoyed some internal win wires as an example of this, external use case examples that we've enjoyed being able to share in from the success of this story, and the immediacy, the engagement, everything it worked as planned, and it was kind of make the plan, execute on the plan, and it went really, really well. So that's a good story. As we've talked here today, I want to start bringing this together as a means in which we can talk about how to get engaged together collectively. There's really simply 3 steps. The program, I hope you'll hear and understand the resignation or what's resonating throughout this is the simplicity, right? Karl has really taken the best of every program that's been made available and really tried to make this as simple as possible. So our engagement is really straightforward. We've got 3 simple steps that we like to do. Contact us at azure@datdyne.com to register your migration project. Step 2, we're going to introduce you to our customer success team. This is a white glove treatment that we're going to embark on the process of white gloving you through the onboarding and to the completion of the migration. That's a successful event for us. Once we kick off, we'll do an onboarding session, and at that point in time, we're going to go through just the roles, the responsibilities, the players, the key players, the timelines, and all of those necessary responsibilities, and then we're going to begin or encourage the kickoff of the migration. I had the question posed to me last night, and I have to say, the gentleman asked me from Microsoft, he says, how soon could the migration start? And I said, immediately. He says, well, are you talking about a month from now, or are you talking about, I said, no, tomorrow. It's late in the night here in the central US time zone, but in your part of the country, tomorrow. And that just, I think it disarmed him completely. And Karl, I'm sure you can completely understand, right? I mean, this is something that we're looking to accelerate these migrations because customers have other things that they need to get focused on and get these things started and let us, kind of work through the process with them as we're continuing through the migrations. So let me make it a little bit easier. We've got a QR code here that you can scan on your screen. You can also email us at azure@datdyne.com. I also am putting my personal email address at chris.cochran@datdyne.com. Feel free to use either of those 2. And the QR code can take you to the registration page. It's datadynamicsinc.com/Microsoft. And we have the registration portal right there available to you to just input your information. And we will contact you immediately to begin the engagement and the steps through the process. So we've tried to even simplify the process with you to try and bring this forward. So with that, can I bring in the questions? I know there's been some that's been coming in. I'd like to get the panel experts' opinions on, and let's see if we can dive into some of the chat questions. So I'm going to try and transfer over here. Let's see. Questions. I'm going into the Q&A, I believe it is. Okay, so Jim, I'm going to start with you, and Karl, you guys feel free to chime in on this one. So what discovery reports does your product offer?
We have quite a few different reports that are, I guess, very, very flexible to customize to your use case. So we gather hundreds of attributes about your individual files and folders, all the way down to access control lists, even being able to show the who, the what, the where, and the when on individual files. So you can say who's been opening files in these folders, who's been opening this document, who renamed this document, all those types of things. So all our reports go into a huge data warehouse to be able to pull that data back really efficiently to take actions on it as well. So that's what I mentioned earlier on, talking about how do we find the owners of the data to be able to get the permission to cut over and who can help us negotiate those downtimes. So yeah, there's quite a lot of reports. If you're interested in seeing a demo, absolutely just contact us and we can arrange that.
Yeah, you can get a gory level of details about the environment. That's for sure. More than you may have ever wanted to know about the files that are stored on your infrastructure.
And we also have really lightweight, fast options as well when it comes to an assessment. So if you just want a very, very quick, very lightweight assessment to know what does my mountain look like in front of me? We also have those options as well. So it's very, very flexible.
You can look at the iceberg above the water and the iceberg below it.
Yeah.
That's whatever your desire is to go into granular detail.
Absolutely.
Good. I've got another question, team. If I can kind of extend in here a little bit, Karl, is this a limited time or period offer?
Yeah, so that's a great question. One is definitely from somebody who's experienced with other Microsoft programs. So this is not something that expires at the end of our quarter, our fiscal year. We have a multi-year agreement in place between the companies to continue this program. So no concerns there around if I engage now 3, 6, 9, or 12 months down the road. Is this null and void? That is not the case. I also was very, very adamant about making sure that was a fact in bringing this to customers, because I know, in my own personal experience, I know migrations can last a very, very long time from start to completion and multiple phases in between. So we did this as a multi-year program.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the detail behind that, Karl. So what's one of the key differentiators that Data Dynamics brings compared to other products that Microsoft may support for enterprise migrations? I'll call on either of you.
From my point of view, it's having an API to every single parameter that's fully available, so we can integrate into customers' current business processes, their automation suites, their engineering standards, if they have those things, and scale. From my point of view, it's proven scale.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, it's addressing a very clear need that customers have. We do not provide a scale out, automated, unstructured data migration tool. So it's just a clear benefit that that there really is no way to address with native Azure tooling.
Good questions. I have one more. I'll see if I can take this one and see if we can get this one answered. So how can I see a demo for this program? So let me try on the first part of that. First, contact me at chris.cochran@datdyne.com or Azure@datdyne.com. Feel free to use those, and we will immediately respond back to you, scheduling a time that's going to work for you to present a demo of StorageX, and also go into some granular details about the program that we may not have covered today and how it's applicable to a specific environment for your customer or for yourselves. So that's the straightforward way to kind of dive into getting started with this. Let's see here. It looks like there's one other question here. If I may, I'm going to take the time on this one. It says, is the migration process completely automated? Dave, you want to start on that one?
There are huge parts of the process that's automated. Adding things in like storage devices needs some credentials to be added. We need permission to be able to copy this data, and you need to connect it into your Azure tenant environment. So there are some steps that are still manual. We can't automate all of it, but the complex bits, the bit where, why do I want this parameter versus that parameter? Why do I want this setting versus that setting? Those are the bits that we've done to help it to streamline, to make it a big green button with nice, efficient, policy-driven migrations.
Yeah, good stuff. Okay, team, thank you. I know we're wrapping up here at our time, and I may have gone a couple minutes over. So for the audience, thank you for sticking with us. I just want to say thank you all. David, great insights, real world experiences, incredible and valuable to our audience. Karl, thank you. Every step of the way has been a journey. This program, I couldn't believe it when you presented it. You've had hands on the keyboard with the product. It's been a long journey getting here. Any closing thoughts for us as we start wrapping up and sign off with our audience?
Yeah, just really, excited to hear the stories from net new customers who leverage this, and I would ask that just reach out to us and let us know. Share your success stories, your good news. As we love to hear that and share those learnings and stories with others. And I do want to make one final statement too, that we've been addressing customers directly as part of our session here today, but certainly understand that there are many solution integrators, there are many services companies that work directly with customers as well, and you can benefit from this too. So really, if you are conducting a migration for a customer, you want to add a new tool into the tool belt and make your staff's life easier in helping that customer with their migration and their cloud transformation, this is for you too. And we've been a little remiss in mentioning that, but I want to make sure that that's clear here as we close.
Fantastic. Karl, Dave, again, thank you. The audience, thank you. Hopefully you found some great benefit of this. Again, we look forward to getting the opportunity to engage with you and have those discussions. Azure@datdyne.com will be the closing. Let me sign off today, and we really do appreciate the time. It's been a lot of fun. Thanks all.
Thanks, everybody.